Hello and greetings to our weekly podcast here at Streetwise, where Coach Blooming, Umarin, and myself, Isaac Jonas, we talk about what's going on in the US markets and even globally. This week has been a week filled with a lot of roller coaster events. For example, there was the Fed decision making, there was the Fed meeting where they decided to keep the rates steady. There were big tech earnings, Microsoft, Meta, Robinhood also they reported their earnings. There was also Amazon, and all those stocks they managed to beat the market. That's also propelling the equities market in the US up. But however, today, as we are recording this video, the market is very red. The Dow dropped 700 points. I saw Coach Blooming, you pointed out that. And we are going to highlight these issues, talk about the opportunities, the risk, how we are making money and positioning ourselves in this market. I'm going to welcome my friend, Coach Blaming. Over to you, Coach.
Happy Red Friday. I mean, it's been a brutal day in the market. Brutal in the sense that all the major indices has been in the red, which is amazing for long-term investors. I think when we were talking over this in the last episode, which was last Friday, and we're looking at the fear and the greed index, it's been in the greed territory for like 6 weeks now. So having a day like this, again, it's good for long-term investors, and I'm very, very happy that we had this. August historically has been a red month. So I mean, this is just 1st of August. We don't know what the rest of August is gonna bring, but whatever August is gonna bring, I'm solid confident that by the end of this year, hopefully the S&P 500 might close around 7,000. But this is what Tom Lee said. I don't know if this is true or not, but Tom Lee is someone that I listen to very frequently. So, but again, having to see the S&P 500 even reach almost all-time high within this week and taking a red day today, I don't think this should be a major concern for any investor, maybe for traders, but as an investor, especially a long-term investor, this is fantastic. All the major tech earnings that we had today, for example, Meta went as high as, I think it went up about $80 in just one day after hours. So again, Meta is almost $800. And I remember in 2022, this thing went as low as, is it not low 200s, low 200s. So again, this is just telling us that time in the market beats time in the market, and any of the corrections that we're seeing is just a great discount if you are a long-term investor. And we should not forget to tell everyone that, hey, this should not be taken as investment or financial advice. These are just two friends talking about the market, about the equities and the crypto market. So over to you, coach.
This is wonderful, Coach. I'm so excited. And I think we will talk about how we are positioning ourselves and making money. I had a very good day. This week was a very good day, a good week as well. I made a bit of money relative to my portfolio performance. Now, I wanted to pick your brains and just comment on the Fed. They held the rates. They didn't, change the rates. So what that means is that the market was expecting this. So I saw the market went up, but also it was very volatile. Usually, when I'm trading, I want to be very careful when the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, at present is speaking, because it can really go either way. I watched a guy who mentioned that he had taken options and options trade before the Fed meeting, and he said he couldn't believe it. A few minutes later, when he came back to check his portfolio, he had lost millions, right? So that's how powerful that can be. So by them holding interest rates steady, that's okay, because in this case, I think as an economist, the tariff talk, for me, it kind of like brings another dynamic that probably the costs are going to increase. But I also wanted to highlight that corporate earnings have been very good. Meta, you mentioned Meta, I think they did beat revenue, right? In terms of like, their expected revenue. And what was very interesting was that Amazon, they did beat earnings, but they lowered their guidance. And hence the stock actually dropped yesterday when they reported earnings on Wednesday, I think. But I listened to Scott Bessent, the current Treasury Secretary, and I learned from these, smart and rich people. He mentioned that the reason why, executives usually give you lower guidance or give you this worst case scenario is so that investors don't sue them as have misled them. So when I see that, as long as the company passes the checklist fundamentals, I'm excited. I'm in for the long haul as an investor. As a trader, I made money today from my trades from the VIX. Coach Blooming last week mentioned that the VIX was on the grid sector. Usually, when it's at that level, the equities market is usually up. It's a very risky area. Again, when we select stock, we only focus on stocks that we understand, high quality stocks. So now, today the market is red. The Dow is down, was down. Coach, I saw your post, down by 700 points. S&P is also down today, and even the Nasdaq. But I think this is a pullback, like you mentioned. So what am I doing? I am buying some stocks that I believe are undervalued, right? To hold. But in terms of my trading, I'm using options to trade. That's how I'm making money. And if you want to learn more about this, make sure you subscribe, you reach out to us, www.streetwiseeconomics. That's my website. Coach Blooming is having a fantastic boot camp that she started today, where she's teaching people how she's making money. She grew her portfolio from zero to over 500,000 in a space of 5 years. Can you believe that? So she knows what she is doing. Again, we always say we are not investment advisors. What we do is we are educators. We are showing you how we are making money. We know there are a lot of people who are making way more money than us, but we are just being transparent about how for us, that's it. It's a lesson. We are not bragging, but we are learning through the process. So make sure you can reach out. I'm going to put the link, bloomingumorin.com, to sign up for that. Coach, now in terms of the future, what are the risks, potential risks, and opportunities that you see as we wrap up?
So, the stock market is the only marketplace when goods go on sale, investors panic. Like literally, when items are on sale, investors just panic. And I'm looking at the red day today and I'm going shopping. Whatever I'm going to be saying here should not be taken as investment advice, but what do I see as some of the risks? Risks is just what you don't know. Just what you just For me personally, I'm optimistic that the market is going to go well, it's going to end strongly this year. But what if we have a black swan event? And that's why I try to tailor my portfolio with a long-term mindset. I'm not in a hurry to make money today. Like, I'm not in a hurry, but I'm building my portfolio such that for the next 5 years again, what milestone do I want to reach financially? And that's how I'm positioning myself. Am I generating cash flow by selling covered calls? Absolutely. I mean, sell covered calls for you to be able to generate, if it's weekly or monthly or bi-weekly, sell that to generate money on the existing stocks that you own, because that is one of the ways that I'm generating money in the market. But even aside from that, just understanding how to edge your portfolio. You were talking about the VIX. Again, it's just a simple strategy that just understanding that, okay, if the equities market is up, maybe I need to edge my portfolio by buying some VIX ETF. And like today, I mean, the market was red. The VIX went up as I think 20 something percent. My friend is smiling because we understand what that means for your portfolio if you have had a position in the VIX ETF. So there are so many strategies that we can use in the market, but I'm just saying that, hey, if you think long term, you position yourself strategically, whatever the market brings. We recovered from the April lows. Now we are in, I don't know what to call this, August lows. We are still going to recover from this. And those that know when to buy, this is a fantastic time in my own personal opinion. But again, hey, this should not be taken as investment advice. I'm just telling you that I'm positioning myself. I'm still buying. I'm taking long dated calls that, hey, this is what I think this stock is going to do over the next 18 months or 2 years. And I'm patient with the market. But in the short term, selling covered call to generate income. And that is just my own strategy. Over to you, coach.
This is wonderful. And I was just smiling as we were talking. And you and I, we had this conversation that we are using options. to invest for the long term. But options are leveraged instruments, so we must always emphasize that the risk is even elevated. But when you take a trade or you take a position from an informed position, you lower the risk substantially, especially if you follow like certain frameworks. For example, how did I know that this is the right time to get into the VIX ETF, right? Number one, my friend here was saying, oh, there's fear. Fear, there's a lot of like greed, like the fear and greed index. And the equities market was very much up. When people tend to, when you get in an Uber or a bus and you hear people talking about certain stocks, right? And you see a lot of IPOs coming in, now, those are some of kind of like the telltale. But for me, I saw that the VIX, it kind of like went to the all-time lows. That for me, it means it's the opposite. So I mean, it meant that for me, any negative news could cause the VIX to spike. So I just take a small position. So instead of doing options necessarily, I want shares at least. But the VIX, if you look at the long-term performance, I think it has dropped by almost 90% if you look at those ETFs. There is decay. So you have to, like, for me, it's more about, the experience and knowing, when to get in, but it's extremely difficult to time the market. So at the end of the day, that's why we always say, look, we don't mind you coming and we can shadow us. We are practitioners, right? We can teach you, we can coach you. The risk is when people just jump in because everyone is buying stocks. That's what I've seen. I've seen that movie again. And so we always say, come to me, www.streetwiseeconomics.com for coaching. My colleague here, www.bloomingumorin .com, and she's doing a one-to-one, coaching session, a call. Again, educate yourself. So that's something that I would say. As we wrap up, I think the risks are going forward, and I'll give you an opportunity, coach, to comment on this as we wrap up, is that I think a lot of people, they lose money because of the fear of missing out. We always say, educate yourself, number one. Subscribe to this channel, follow us when we do commentary. Yesterday I ended up spending 3 hours of my time. I usually don't like to do that because I don't like to kind of like focus on specific stocks and just give out to information for free, because it takes time. I mean, so sometimes I do that for our paid clients. But there was a conversation on X. There was a guy who posted that, oh, there's this, stock that was, I think, from South Africa or something, that is listed at the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. So it piqued my interest. And the person was like, this is a Zimbabwean stock. So the first thing that I did when I checked the stock, I'm like, it is zero, like very weak fundamentals. Those are not kind of my stocks. And then the other guy was like, hey, have you thought about Caledonia, this other stock? Again, this is not investment advice. So I then was like, okay, let me just, out of interest, because it has operations in Zimbabwe. I was very fascinated that it's listed at the New York Stock Exchange. So I started digging into the stock and, looking at it has very strong fundamentals. Again, with gold, with commodities, you really have to be careful because they can fluctuate. Now, as equities were dropping, gold was going up, and that is a casual relationship that has been saying, like, people go for gold for safety. But again, how do you know if this is the right time to get in? That's where you need some coaching. That's where you need to read or maybe consult financial advisors uh, to learn, because otherwise the market is a very complicated place. So that's me for this week. I'm gonna let Coach comment and wrap up, but thank you so much for tuning in. Coach, over to you for your concluding remarks.
If you don't understand the business, you have no business being in the business. You can participate anywhere in the market, whether it's equities, commodities, or digital asset or crypto. So to say, it's important to understand what you're investing in because that knowledge can shield you from a lot of mistakes. As we wrap up today, I always like to say that may the market be in our favor, but the market will be in your favor if you harm yourself with knowledge. Knowledge has a capacity to just transform the result you're going to have. We're talking about options, we're talking about edging our portfolio, we're talking about covered calls, we're talking about cash secured put. These are different strategies in the market. But I'm saying it again, anybody can learn investing. It is a learnable skill. And again, if you need any of our services, go online. And if you don't need it, you can Google this thing and know it yourself. Take the time to learn. But again, when you reach out to the services of a practitioner, they help you weed out a lot of mistakes that you would have made. Because why? We've been in this game for more than 5 years already.